Hello, my name's John Bowen, and at the time of Anthony Caro's sculpture being thought about, I was what was called the senior lecturer at the College of Further Education in Poole. And I became a member of the Poole Arts Council. I was Vice President of the Poole Arts Council. It was a group of people who had wonderful ideas about what they could do, and that was going to go on outside the perimeter of the Arts Centre. So the idea was to generate interesting events and activities outside the Arts Centre within Poole. Within the Arts Council, we were brainstorming, and I had seen an image of Anthony Caro on the television. This must have been in the early 80s. I'd seen an image of Anthony Caro on the television one evening, probably South Today, in which he was on top of St Aldham's Head with a piece of his sculpture, the sea below him, and being interviewed. And that was the first time I realised that Anthony Caro actually had some connection with the Purbecks and with Poole. And so I suggested to Poole Arts Council, I said, if Anthony Caro has a holiday cottage on St Aldham's Head, we really ought to ask him if he'd be interested in putting a piece of work on Poole Quay. Because his work is very metallic, strong, almost industrial at times, and then that would seem an appropriate place to put it. The idea I remember at the time I had, which was that the decking, which people comment about these days, but the decking I thought reminded me of being inside the engine room of a paddle steamer, a steam-powered paddle steamer. And I thought that decking was very appropriate to something of today's age, or not so long ago's age, if you were going to do a piece called sea music. So that was the kind of relationship I had with Caro. It was just through an intermediary of Tom Robertson, sharing ideas, making comments. After the piece of sculpture was made and installed, I found myself in conversation with some folk, the U3A group in Wareham, fairly elderly folk, I have to say, and they hadn't been to Poole for a long time, and they certainly hadn't seen the Anthony Caro sculpture on the quay. And they were curious, and so I said, well, let's meet and let's look at it. The idea was that we would walk around the corner, I would prepare them with a few ideas, we would walk around the corner and seeing this piece of sculpture for the first time at the end of the street. So I suggested that they considered its scale. Is it the right scale for the end of the street as you see it? Is it the right colour, do you think? And so we walked around the corner and stood there and looked at it for the first time for them, and they were amazed. They said, well, it fills the space very well. I said, well, what about the colour? Well, the colour looks very industrial, they said. In fact, the shapes look rather industrial. They seem to fit the cranes that we can see behind it. And that was very gratifying to think that people seeing it for the first time could see the connection between the shapes of the sculpture and the cranes and the quay, the very nature of the quay. We walked up the decking, up the steps to the decking, and I had looked over the side and seen there was a whaler. In those days there was a Greenpeace whaler to raise people's awareness of whaling on the water below us. And I noticed on the deck of the whaler there was a coil of rope, and on the quay there was a bollard with ropes wound round it. And I said, do you see any connection between these seats, the lovely seats that have been designed for it, do you see any connection between these seats and what you see around you? And they looked around and they looked up and down the quay, and then suddenly with a noise of surprise they said, look down there, there's a coil of rope, it's just like the seat. There's a bollard, that's just like the other seat. And then the man, there was only one man among them, and the man said, and this decking reminds me of when I was working, I was in a submarine. That's what I was a submariner. And this decking is just like the decking we had on the submarine. I thought, this is extraordinary. We're thinking of sea music, we might be thinking of Mendelssohn's Fingal's Cave, we might be thinking of also other kinds of things, but now this man's talking about being a submariner. We then went back into the lovely merchant's house and Scaplan's Court, and I had arranged for some 5 or 6 very large coffee table books to be laid out, which were entirely devoted to the work of Anthony Caro. And they leafed through these books. There were images from Tokyo, exhibitions in New York, all around the world. There have been major exhibitions of his work. And they leafed through these pages, and I said, well, how do you feel about all this? And they just said, aren't we lucky?